Mr. Fawemi, she has raised something which I think is very important. Learning begins from the home. And back to the question that Neota asked. Suppose the parents are not in a position to give the child learning because they themselves have not, they're not literate. Of course, we have seen children from totally illiterate mother and father becoming geniuses. How does that happen?
Yeah, because the only function of the brain is to learn. That's the only function of the brain. So if you don't learn, you are misusing your brain. Learning is natural. I mean, so if you sit down here, you will learn. Learning is something that happens even when you're not conscious of. So if you sat in a car and somebody was playing music you never listened to, after some time you learn the song, right? Nobody taught you, nobody beat you. Learning happens every time and any time. So it doesn't need for you to have parents that are brilliant. Let me ask you a question. Nigeria produced a Nobel laureate in English language. He grew up in Abeokuta. His English teacher was not a Nobel laureate. I dare say he did not even write a textbook in English. How was he able to do that? Perhaps his parents only spoke Egba, or like he calls himself Adijegba. Ben Carson is a world-renowned neurosurgeon. His mom was raised by a single mom. His mom was not educated. Because the question is, it's environment that people learn. So all the parent needs to do is to create the environment to learn. And the challenge is that if you do not create the environment to learn, the child will still learn, but want what you want him to learn.
Yeah.
So if the child, for example, stays near a bus stop, I mean, there's a bus stop in the house. What does a child learn first is to how to call bus stops in Lagos. So the child will grow up and the first word he says is the child will learn that because that's the environment has been created. So the question is, if a parent does not, and it's simulation, you need to deliberately simulate. It's been found something as simple as the number of books in your house when you are growing up will influence your attitude to read it. Absolutely. So that's why you go to houses and they have a library. It's not as if they read those books.
But let me just paint you a picture here. A friend of mine said one day he got back home and his daughter, who was I think 4 years old at that time, went to school that day, and because he usually comes out, what did you learn today? And the girl said, my teacher asked me what parents do at home, and I said they watch TV. And so he had to slap himself because when he comes back from work at about 6, 7, he sits after his drink, he sits in front of the TV to watch the news, and all of it, then goes to bed about 11 after our own news, 10 o'clock news. So the girl says they watch TV. So he told himself no more TV. So he comes back, he sits same place he normally sits, but he gets a book and reads. So yesterday he got back home and his daughter, now 5, runs up to him, Daddy, guess what? We did not watch any TV. These are his words. We did not watch any TV at all, but we read. Wow. Now that points to what you were saying about the environment set for the child. Yeah. But what if, that same question, what if
it's not an excuse. Because the question, you can create the environment. So if you cannot read English, you can buy an English textbook. You can borrow an English textbook. There are libraries in Lagos, and Lagos is doing well with libraries.
What about in the rural areas?
The question is that you can still do something. There's what they call stories by moonlight. Those stories we tell in the night. There's like tales by moonlight. Do you know that
the woman who is going to grate her cassava
let me explain this.
Gary, does she have time for all this?
Do you know the worst problem with the professional today is the inability to listen? Because he goes to school, they teach him to talk, to write, to debate, to argue. They don't teach us in schools to listen. The greatest problem in marriage, in society, in governance, in leadership today of the adult is the ability to listen. Where did we learn to listen? From storytelling when we were young. Because when your mom tells you to tell you a story, you don't talk till when she says, this is the song we're going to sing, and then you go after her. And then she continues. At the end of the story, what does she tell you? What does this story tell us? You. So that's what happens. So even if parent is not educated, she can still simulate the environment. Let me ask you a question. The songs we used to sing for children when they were young in the oldest days was not sung in English, it was sung in Yoruba, for example, where I grew up. So a song like Batariadu Koko Kabio Baka, which means you're going to have fine shoes if you go to school. Musicians like Shino Peters sang Omalewe Kawe. That is education. Because this man is using juju music to promote education. So it's not an excuse. It's not an excuse for anybody not to learn. The question is, your role as a parent is to create that environment to support the child. So you have children, for example, whose parents are hawking or whose parents are... There's a picture that was on social media a couple of years ago. A lady was selling granite or something on the expressway. And then she sat under a traffic light or a street light, whatsoever, and she was reading. So it's not an excuse. So an akara seller has a newspaper that she used to wrap the akara. You can tell your boy when nobody's around to read the newspaper while you are frying the akara. The point is that we need to be very deliberate as parents to ensure people learn. But let me also mention this because it's very, very important for us to think about it. If you look at what is happening today in Nigeria, I have an attitude that it's difficult for us to educate Nigerians without government. Because government can do something very simple that makes a lot of difference. What is happening today in Nigeria is that, so if you check where we are today in the world, we're using the Sustainable Development Goals. Initially, we had the Millennium Development Goals. The Millennium Development Goals emphasize inputs in education. The Sustainable Development Goals emphasizes outcomes of education. So what are we doing in Nigeria today? We're increasing inputs, more money, 500,000 teachers, free food in schools. So the world has left input because it's been found that it's not just input that provides education. So I give you two examples of two countries. One of the countries that spend the greatest amount of money on a child to go to school is Luxembourg. The best in class educated countries in the world is Finland, North Korea, and Shanghai. Those three are the top best consistently over the last 5 years, 10 years. The amount that Luxembourg spends on education is higher than all those three countries, but they don't get the same result. Because the world has seen that it's not about input alone. If it was input, then you would not have a Nobel Literature in English from Nigeria, from Egba. So it's not about input, it's about a system that converts the input into the desired outputs. So we need to move beyond, we need more teachers, we need more textbooks, we need more money. We need to look at that system. And that system, if it's not run professionally, we're not going to get that. Because that's the challenge we have now. If that system that creates those inputs does not form a system that brings the output. Somebody said for every $11 sent to a Nigerian public education system, only $1 gets to academic content. $10 goes to real estate and inefficiencies. And that is not public schools. So if you say your child's school fees is, for example, 15 naira or 10 naira or 30 naira, sit down with your head teacher. Close to between 45 to 65% of that goes to real estate and goes to inefficiencies. Part of the inefficiency is school boss. You are a school owner. You are not Chisco. You are not Young Shall Grow. What's your business? So that's part of what does not allow for the outcomes we come. Because the question is, if the input does not create the system, the input will disturb education. So what is going to happen when we start feeding children for free? The teachers that should teach will be the ones to supervise the sharing of the food. So instead of them to be teaching, they are sharing food. Supervising plates are washed. Supervise that don't happen. India did a revolution in the last 1 year about their school system, a very small community, and they realized the problem was that it was when you were adding inputs that they were distracting teachers from teaching. Because it's not because a teacher is in school, that's where the child is learning. Teachers are in school, spending all the time saying, sit down, stand up. What is the academic inputs? And that's where I want to appeal to parents. I'm chairman of PTA's Parents Association. When we go to this meeting, we need to start to interrogate what quantum of our school fees goes to academic content. Enough of investment in real estate. Can I ask you a question? Why is schooling more expensive in Lekki Phase 1 versus Ikoyi versus Oshodi? All the teachers went to Adeyemi College of Education, Ilaro College of Education. So the same teachers, the same textbook, more food than not. It's just because of real estate. So we're having that challenge now where the quality of input that goes to academics, and that's what brings the result we want, is very little. And that's where at the end of the day, the people that leave our secondary school system cannot transit to the university or to the higher institution. The people that leave our university cannot translate to the workplace because that system has not been able to effectively put the inputs together to produce the right output. Okay,
when we come back, Mr. Adenregan, we'll look at empowering these people, getting the output out now. Please don't go away.